Hey everybody, it's springtime here. I'm here with Ira Sorensen. Ira, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having
I
me.
Yes, so Ira is the real deal. So I actually had the privilege of meeting him at Colton Lindsay's WGR Summit probably like 6 months ago. Has it been about 6 months? Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Where's time gone, right?
I know. I've been thinking about that a lot. What is time? It's an emotion. But anyway, we'll get it. That's a whole nother subject. Um, but I had the privilege of meeting Ira at Colton's event, and he was a wealth of knowledge. And so I reached out to him and asked him if he would be a speaker at our Cancun event in Mexico in March, because Ira, like what you teach and what you provide is something that I think everybody needs to know. So maybe before we dive in, give a little back history of who you are, because I see all the bikes behind you. And I know you're a big biker. So give us a little background of your story, who you are, and then let's get into some tax-free wealth and infinite banking strategies.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for having me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got in the insurance industry about 18 years ago, and it was an exciting time, kind of the Wild West, learning everything. And about 2 years in, I learned about this tax-free wealth and how to use the infinite banking policies and the whole concept of creating tax-free wealth through those policies. So just kind of been my passion over the last 18 years of helping people understand how to do those policies and how to create that and
Mhm.
help educate clients on the benefits of them. So it's been quite the process over the last 18 years.
So what exactly is infinite banking? Like give like a layman's, you've never spoke with anybody like, and you had to say, "Hey, this is what it is."
So in general, what they use is a whole life policy with riders that pump up the cash values. And those whole life policies are with mutual companies that pay dividends,
Mhm.
and they grow those policies on a tax-free basis. And the whole idea is how can you use these policies both short term and long term throughout your lifetime? Short
Mhm.
term, how can you create this value there that you can use those policies to for any large purchases, to go on trips, to pay for cars, to fund college. There's really, it's endless in what you can use these policies for, short term and long term.
Okay, so Ira, let's back up because just in case somebody here is watching and doesn't understand. So every single person should have life insurance. Period. The end. If you have a family, a kids, like you should be making sure you have life insurance. There's two types of life insurance policies, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so one is whole life and the other is term, right? Okay,
And I
so
totally agree. Everybody should own some sort of life insurance, even if it's just a term policy, which is like
mhm,
renting, or
mhm.
whole life, or these infinite banking policies are like buying. So again, just protect your family and maximize those policies.
Right. So the term is like, hey, it's like, hey, you have a term for 10, 20, 30 years, whatever that term policy you worked out with the insurance company. And it's usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's usually a little bit less expensive because it runs out, right? Or am I
Correct.
correct by saying that? Okay. So I know like when I was younger, I had a term policy. So I was in my 20s, I'd had kids, and I was like, let's just get for $30 a month, $1 million or whatever. But now, like, as I've gotten older and I've learned a little bit more about what this is a whole life policy is something that you decide if you're going to do 1 million, 2 million, whatever that number is, and you back into it. How does somebody decide how much life insurance that they need?
Well, we use human life value. What is
Okay.
your human life value? What do you create, and how does that work? And then, depending on your age, an insurance company will give you a certain amount. So maybe,
Okay.
if you're in your 20s, they'll give you 30 times your annual income. If you're in your 50s, they may give you 10 to 20% of your annual income. And that's just what they'll give you in an offer. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what you have to do. But
Right.
then that's just identifying the need of the insurance and how much to do. From
Right.
there, that's where we get in with clients and help them understand, okay, if you're making X amount a year, how much should you be putting away in these long-term savings in this particular asset, and how much should that be on an annual basis, and work through that with clients.
So let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So you can take a whole life policy. I'm going to use $1 million. And then you're putting funding into it to pay for that policy, right? And then the infinite banking is that you can borrow against that policy of what you have put in, correct? Like the amount of money at usually a decent interest rate. So you still have your $1 million policy. So if you passed away or something your family was taken care of, but you're borrowing against that policy that you can go and invest and create additional wealth. Is that
exactly
correct?
Yep, exactly. And we structure these policies the easiest way. I'm a visual person. The easiest way is you have a base policy. We're trying to keep the cost of insurance super low on these, with the ability to add these cash riders that are basically like putting a sail on the boat. So the base is the boat, and then the cash rider is the sail. And the sail is where we get that acceleration. Because if we put a $10,000 premium, just use that example, maybe 2,500 of that's your quote unquote base commitment. That's like the minimum payment. And the other 7,500, that's just going right into your cash value. And you build that cash value with that rider in day one. So that's where you build up this value and have this access. It's like a bank, if you're building this policy and you're going to become your own bank. Banks, it takes time to build up their assets, to build up their clientele. It's the same thing with a policy. You don't just write off, have money in there, and you're off and investing with it. It takes time to build that up. But we see basically after about a 3-year period, you get cash positive, meaning what you put in starts to exceed that cash value growth. From there on out, it's just a matter of what do you use that for.
Right.
My oldest policy is about 16 years, almost 17 years old. And I recently bought a rental property with my policy. It happened fast. I needed to close on it fast, like we all know happens these days.
Yep. Yeah.
And I needed that money for the down payment. I had the money in my account. I had it transferred from that account into my bank account, wired that over, closed on that, and now I've got that value of the asset of that real estate. And now over time, I'll just pay that back. And again, that's where we get into the nitty gritty of how it
totally.
Just in general, those are examples of how you can use that and have that build other assets.
It's so powerful. Like if you think about it, like you have to have life insurance anyway. So why wouldn't you go and get a policy that you could ultimately, again, like you said, you'd borrow it, you went and bought a rental. So now you're going to get cash flow from the rental. And then you also still have that policy in place, right? And so it's just one of those things that's like, I just don't think a lot of people understand it or know about it as a resource.
Well, and again, it's just a different strategy. And it works against what traditional minded people will do. We're all taught just do 401ks and IRAs, which I'm not saying those are bad or good. It's just there's other ways to look at finance and the value of putting money into these policies and what you can do with them and have all the flexibility because they're guaranteed. You have the ability to get at that cash for whatever you need it for. And then it's a lifetime growth of this tax-free, which again, that's one of the big benefits of this is how can we have this value grow? And now we get income off of that potentially in the future with tax-free. So there's not many tax-free options out there in this world. So that's where we want to get the tax advantages of it too.
I think that's what's powerful. I recently heard and have read that your biggest expense in life is taxes, right? So if you can mitigate the taxes, then that's where you want to go. Okay, so Ira, you're coming to Mexico because my understanding, like you, Colton, who's a dear friend of both of ours, like he brings you in all of his events. Most of his clients use you, his coaching clients, because it's the real deal. So you're going to come and you're going to get into the nitty gritty about how you can do this, what kind of policies, all that jazz, correct? What else is there anything else you're going to be covering that you're like, this is what's up?
Well, super excited to go to Cancun. What a great place to host an event. Super excited about that. But what we're going to be able to do is I'll be able to do some presentations. And then during the downtime or the break time, I'll be able to do some one-on-one and just, talk with people specifically about their situations and what would be a good fit. Because in general, it's good for everybody, right? But everybody's going to have a different situation. So really just being able to customize that for each individual person, it's going to be great.
Yeah. And so part of this was wanted you to come because it's outside of the real estate scope. So Mexico in general, we're going to have a ton of people talking about how they're buying their rental properties, doing wholesale ancillaries, but you're that extra component of like, how can you have just outside of that, the insurance part. I also really wanted to design this too, of like, you're going to present and then they're going to have the times to come find you, go to dinner, get lunch, like whatever with you to figure out what their personal scenario is that would work best for them. So I'm super pumped about this in every aspect. In the meantime, though, if somebody doesn't want to wait until Mexico and they want to get in contact with you, how do they find you to learn more about this?
So the easiest way is probably just send me an email at ira@reviveinsurance.com, or they can also text me on my cell phone, 801-641-3101. So I'd be happy to.
You're
Yeah,
daring just putting it out there to the world.
I know. Well, again, I want to be
Not like
there.
you can't find
I
it.
want to be accessible so people can have, if they want to learn this, I want to be able to give them the keys to be able to help do it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So I actually am going to have you speak on day one because I feel like everybody needs to hear this message and get a little bit more into it. And then after you present, then the next 3 days, like you can do breakouts or go to lunch or do a mastermind or whatever. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's something different that a lot of people aren't talking about, and it's definitely needed. So I
Well,
super
and
appreciate you doing it.
yeah, and speaking at Colton's WGR events and everything, I've found it's just such a good piece of the puzzle for real estate professionals too, because a lot of real estate professionals, they don't have their 401ks or their own retirement plans. So from that aspect, they need something for their business to be able to put away and save for retirement. Again, this is just an option for that, and it's a perfect fit, especially if they're doing fix and flips or if they're buying real estate, showing them how they can take these policies and create those other assets through that. And we'll be able to share some examples. I'm sure Colton will be game to share. He's had policies for years too. I'm sure he'll be game to share some of the things that he's been able to do in his business with his policies, and other people will be willing to share as well.
I do have one question, as you just mentioned that. Do most people do multiple policies, or do they do one large, or like what makes it that they ultimately go and get multiple policies?
Well, again, it goes back to what we were talking about at the start. I mean, we want to make sure people are protected. So this is where we may layer in a term policy with whole life to get a maximum protection, just to make sure the family's taken care of. But then when it gets down to policies, people can have multiple policies. It's more efficient to do one big one, but cash flow just doesn't allow that in life, right? We need to have the ability as cash flow allows. So that's where you end up potentially having a portfolio of whole life policies where they all work collectively towards the end goal, but you have multiple policies just because your cash flow hasn't allowed you to buy one big one. So anyway.
It's like this changed over time, right? Like,
exactly.
Actually, I'm in that scenario. I got one when I was younger, and then as I got a little bit older, I bought another policy and all those things. So I can see that. One last question for you, Ira. Can you front load it? Like if somebody said, hey, I'm going to go in, I'm going to get this type of policy. I have 200 grand, 300 grand, whatever that number is. Can I front load it and then borrow against that front load?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. And we have constraints within what the IRS will allow. So the answer is yes, you can put a lot of money into these policies up front, but we have to avoid what's called the MEC. And we'll dive into all the
in Mexico
policies. But to keep it tax free, we have to have a certain amount of death benefit to allow to get that much cash into it. And so that's something we just have to work within those constraints with what the IRS rules are. But yes, it can be done. It's just a matter of, do we do that all at once or do we do it over time? We're avoiding the MEC, which keeps this policy tax-free.
Yep, makes sense. All right, you guys, I'm pumped. I'm excited. Ira, I'm actually going to reach out to you before Mexico because I do have some questions. But if you guys are wanting to learn more, reach out to Ira. If you're wanting to come to Mexico, we have, because of the restrictions with COVID, which is bananas, we've been limited on our tickets. We only have like 20 tickets left. So if you've been on the fence, you want to go, you want to spend 3 days with some of the top minds in real estate, Ira, I'm bringing in my personal coach to speak as well. Like we've got legit people coming. shoot me a DM, or I'll put the link below as well. Get your ticket, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Awesome.
Thanks for fitting me on your calendar today. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Spring.
Okay, see you guys.
We'll see you.